In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
It looks like one of those scenes of an old building being purposely dynamited and blown.
When we are successful, I'm just a patsy, and we will be.
Ready to come to the microphone, so we'll listen up.
A new world order.
So my name's Robbie Parker.
It might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m.
Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, where, as is the rule for the show, the second hour on Wednesday is devoted to the new JFK show, where Gary King typically takes the lead. In this case, Gary has no camera, so his voice will be heard, but his face will not be seen. We're trying to get a hold of Larry Rivera to join us, and Don Fox is present, I'm very pleased to say. How are you doing, Don?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jim. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be a part of such an esteemed panel of researchers, I guess.
Well, the way Gary puts it, we're 100% truthers. If you're anything less than 100% committed to the truth, you're not a part of this crowd. So it's
a very small crowd.
Very, very small crowd.
4 people, and I tell you what, if you show any signs of being an op, you're out. I think we've got the right guys.
Well, I don't know, a guy who won't show his face on television, that's pretty suspicious to me.
No, I'm all over the internet, believe me. So, well, what I would like to do is make a pledge to everyone that in this turbulent sea of disinformation, I feel that this research team that we've assembled is a place to go for documented information. And I really believe that you can save yourself years of anguish by just going ahead and not taking our word for it, but really looking into the information, because as everyone knows, Dr. Fesser will throw more information, more documents, more DIA documents, videos, photography, you name it. So, yeah, 1 second. Larry's on the phone right now.
Yeah, I just sent Larry a chat note to get to switch to Zoom.
Yeah, y'all can go ahead while I'm getting Larry.
Sure, okay. Larry should be joining us shortly here.
Yeah, Don, what have you been working on, my friend?
Well, I've been working on a number of things, cleaning up some 9/11 stuff, and I'm going to be writing some new articles. A few weeks ago, I've been working on a house, and I was carrying a bunch of plaster and debris from the house to the dumpster, and I managed to get a pinched nerve in my neck, and my left arm quit working.
Oh, no.
I could not type. I mean, I could barely type. It was basically.
Did you drop all the debris at a single stroke and create a chaotic mess?
No, see, the way it works with me is I can do anything on a given day. It's the next day when I wake up that things quit working, and that's what happens. I mean, I felt fine the day I was doing all the demo, and then the next day I got up. I'm like, man, something is wrong here, and I could not sleep laying down for a day or two there. I had to sleep in a chair.
Wow. And, of course, you and I have an ongoing exchange with 2 guys representing something close to the A&E position. Oh, Larry, we got you? Have we got Larry, Chance?
It looks like he's there.
Okay. Now, you've got those 4 video clips, have you? Or audio clips, I should say. Yeah, good, excellent. Have we got both Gary and Larry?
Looks like Gary's getting.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, getting him on board here.
Yeah, we're working on it.
So yeah, I guess tonight, I guess we're going to talk about, I guess, the state of the research community in general, and I guess one thing that had come across my plate this morning, what I do is I download MP3s like Black Op Radio and some other shows, and while I'm driving or doing errands, whatever, I listen to all these MP3s, and I heard Jim DiEugenio and Leno Sanek talking about Z-film alterations, and so as soon as I got done listening to that, I called Gary this morning, and
they are so out of it. I cannot believe it. I mean, anyone who's seen Larry's work on the Four Horsemen and the Four Horsemen Part 2 has to be blown away. I mean, all the arguments I've been making over the years are decisive, and the fact that Leno Sanek and DiEugenio are still dragging along and unwilling to admit is very, very troubling about them. I was on for so many years with Len as virtually co-host, and it just, to me, is incredibly disappointing.
See, I used to love that show back then, and see, that was when I was just a totally, not that I'm a big household name now or anything, but I was a complete unknown guy in his basement, and I would look forward to Thursday nights with Black Op Radio coming on with Osanek and Fetzer, and I'd be down here doing my laundry, ironing clothes, listening to Black Op, getting the latest scoop on politics, and all that is no more.
Well, I knew something was terribly wrong when, in traveling to Vancouver, I stopped by Len's place, his studio, not far outside the city, and Len recorded 3 different takes with me for his 50 years, and one was on the Secret Service, and one was on the Zapruder film, and one was on Doorman. And he wound up only using an abbreviated version of the Secret Service, because when I talked about the Secret Service stop and all that and made remarks about the Zapruder film not showing it, he edited that out. And then he didn't use at all what I was reporting about Oswald as Doorman or the massive evidence we have of the Zapruder film being edited. I mean, if you don't address those issues, you're completely out of it, because we've been doing this for God knows how long now. I mean, work on the Zapruder film. We had a lot already in assassination science in 1998. I organized the first Zapruder film symposium in Dallas in 1996. Murder in Dealey Plaza has a lot. And then, of course, you got the whole book, The Great Zapruder Film Hoax, in 2003. How anyone can hold out in this day and age, Don, is beyond me. I mean, they have to be either mentally incapacitated or
a bunch of ops.
Yeah, the work, like John P. Costella. I mean, let's look at the work he has done on the Z film at like a PhD level. I mean, he's ripped it to shreds now. And I'm listening to Jim DiEugenio this morning talking about how, well, maybe one frame was altered a bit, like 313. Maybe they did a little touch up here and there on it, but you got to be some crazy Fetzer to think that there was wholesale alterations of that film. And even before I had even sent Jim Fetzer my first email, I found this YouTube clip, and on a few JFK shows back, we played that clip where they talk about, okay, there's not wholesale alterations to the film. Well, let's just talk about the pasted in Stemmons freeway sign. Or if you look at the bystanders, A, they're larger than the people in the limo, and B, their movements are out of sync with the limo. So the limo's going by, but everybody in the crowd is looking in the other direction. It's like everybody went to Dealey Plaza to see the president, but if you watch the Z film, nobody's actually looking at the president.
None of them paid any attention when he was actually there right in front of them. Oh, it's loopy. It's simply loopy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Speak, Gary. Yeah, okay. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I actually had the clip if y'all want to hear it. It's about 10 minutes long.
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. Have we got Larry with us? Okay, Larry. I can't hear you real well. Does Larry have a oh, I see. We got an extra one here on the side. All right. I got to go full screen. I got it. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
How about now?
Oh, yeah, great. Sound great, Larry.
Oh, hey, how you doing, Don? Hi, Gary, Jim. It's nice to be.
It's wonderful to have you here, Larry.
All right, the most formidable JFK team on planet Earth, right here, right now.
Gary, you go ahead and play one of these clips, yeah, and we'll listen to it and then we'll talk about it. Go for it.
It's about 10 minutes long, but here we go. This is what we're having to deal with, and this is why we have to have our own show. It's just we don't really have any choice. That's just the way it is.
What are your thoughts on Grodin's continuing denial that Zapruder film has been altered? I think Robert is allowed to have his position. Okay, I mean, he spent a lot of time with the film. Okay, I mean, he's not the only one who says that the Zapruder film is genuine. I mean, there's also David Rohn. There's also Josiah Thompson. There's many people who think the film is genuine. The late Roger Feynman, Randy Robertson, etc. If JFK was shot from the front, as we must now surely believe, then where's a gaping wound at the back of the skull in the Z film? All right. Robert says you can see this on the Z film. Okay. And in his book, Absolute Proof, okay, he blows up from frames and he says you can see this. It's just that you can't see it on the film itself, but you can see it on individual frames. If it's not there, we can only assume the film has been altered. Well, like you just said, Robert says you can indicate it. Okay.
Well, let me ask you a question about this. Is it possible that if, you're talking about frangible bullets and all that, that you could be hit with that much force and it not blow out the back of the head? I mean, some of those X-rays, they show all this scattering. I mean, there's the one that shows a 6.5 millimeter object that's obviously been put in there.
That's a really good question. I have to say that this is something Albert Rossi brought up to me once. Okay. Has anybody ever done a study of how frangible bullets behave once they enter a hard bone like the skull? And I have to say, I don't think anybody's ever done that. At least I've never seen it. But it actually should be done. But I really don't think that's here nor there because, in my opinion, the blowout in the back of the head is pretty much undeniable today. I mean, there's just too many witnesses. If it's 2, 3, 4, you might be able to find a way to get around it. When it's 40 witnesses in 2 different locations and the House Select Committee lied about it to cover it up, then I think you can say that there was a blowout in the back of Kennedy's head.
All right. Well, my second question then along that lines is that there have been 4K scans. These are high definition scans of the Zapruder film. Now, what's the difference between, I mean, there's the Fetzer fruitcake stuff where it's just a cartoon and made up, or there's the other point of view. I think that
I just have to say for a second, that pisses me off, but let's continue on.
Well, it's just ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. I've got a whole book on this, and he suggests that my position is some kind of fruitcake. That's ridiculous. Leno Sanik ought to have his mouth washed out with soap.
All right, here we go. Calm down, everyone.
Really good question also, Len. Now, I know exactly what you're talking about. Do you think the audience knows what you're talking about?
Well, okay, go ahead, because I haven't seen these 4K scans, but I've heard about them, and the couple from Hollywood films. Go ahead.
There's a couple who work in the movie business, so I won't name them for the sake of their own privacy, that took the time to get a 3rd-generation copy of the Z film. They then went ahead and worked it on a editing machine to maximize people who aren't technical about film. 4K means you have something like a 4,000 pixel rendition of your image. To give you an example, before HDTV or high definition television, regular TV had 480 pixels on a regular TV picture. So when you can put 4,000 pixels on,
regular HD is 1080 now, right?
Okay, so this is like
3,800.
This is like 4 times. Okay, what all right, so that's the quality of image you can get. Now, I've actually seen this. Okay, I've actually seen this.
You went to their home, right?
Yes, and I've actually seen this, and they went over with me 2 or 3 times. And I have to say, of all the cases I've seen, and I've read a lot about this stuff, about the case for Zapruder film alteration, I have to say they have the most convincing case. Now, I also have to say there's a couple more things they have to do. And I told them that, okay, along the way to make it even a more convincing case than it is. And they agreed with me, okay, and they're working on that actually right now. But I do have to say, if their work is genuine, then they have what I think is the strongest case I've ever seen for the Zapruder film being altered. What they did is they found an artifact when they got it, when they blew up the film and they high definitioned it. And it does appear to be that there is a non-moving artifact on the film, which can only be there to cover up the hole in the back of his head. That's what it appeared like to me. Now, I'm not saying it's a bulletproof case because it's not yet a bulletproof case. Like I said, they have to do a couple things yet, and hopefully they will do them. But let me say this: there's a big difference between what they're doing and what Jim Fetzer's saying, and what Doug Horn's saying, and what David Lifton's saying. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Let's talk about that, because that's the problem. I think that for myself, I haven't seen these, so therefore I don't feel obligated to wave a flag saying this is definite proof. I'm convinced. And in the meantime,
I'm not saying that.
I know, but I'm saying that people like Doug Horn and others have seen it, and they're saying there's something wrong here. So the thing is, in the community, we shouldn't get so mad about Grodin or other people who say, well, look, I don't think it's been altered, until someone says, here it is, and they have, peer review.
What I'm saying is this. If you go ahead and read some of the things that, say, Doug Horn has written, and I'm one of the only people who've read his whole book too, and some of the things that, say, someone like Fetzer has said, or Lifton. Okay, see, what they're saying is that there's been a wholesale reconstruction of the film. All right. In other words, what they're saying is the whole film was rephotographed and re-edited, which would, of course, in their most extreme forms, it would include traveling mats. Okay, you know what a traveling mat is?
Yeah, I do, but go ahead for people who don't know.
One of the most prevalent and important special effects before computer-generated graphics came in was something called the traveling mat. Okay, what that means, Steven Spielberg used it to great effect in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He didn't even know what it was, okay, until he asked the special effects guy, Doug Trumbull, what it was. And Trumbull perfected them for 2001: A Space Odyssey. And what it means is this, that you can insert a false background to the foreground and make the background move so it doesn't look like a painting, and what they call an inserted matte shot. And so it's a very, very difficult thing to do. It's not easy. And it's very, very hard not to make it detectable. But if you read what some of these guys are saying, they're actually saying that the Zapruder film has a traveling mat in it, which was very, very hard to do for Spielberg in 1977 or 76 or 77 with 35 millimeter film. Hard to do with Doug Trumbull in 1968. In 2001 was, I think that was actually shot in 65 or 70 millimeter film. To try and do it in 1963 with Super 8. I mean,
okay. Gary, I got to interrupt here. This is such complete rubbish. Even Noel Twyman had given more powerful proofs than they're acknowledging in Bloody Treason, which was published in 1997. 1997. He'd already discovered that, that the head turn, the Greer head turns occur twice as fast as is humanly possible. That might not sound like much until you realize it turns a 4-minute mile into a 2-minute mile. He'd already discovered one anomaly after another. We've talked about the motionless spectators. For God's sake, Zapruder said he filmed continuously once the motorcade came into the, to the intersection, and never stopped filming until it disappeared through the triple underpass. But we have a huge gap of 100 frames, at least, from the turn from Houston on to Elm. How could they have any doubt that it's been edited? Zapruder said he filmed continuously. And then we have the anomalies you've already been mentioning, they're looking at the wrong place. We have Gene and Mary up on the grass when they said they stepped into the street. We know how it was done. John Costello has taken it apart. You can see the blowout in frame 374, 375. I discovered that. The book they should be reading is The Great Zapruder Film Hoax. I mean, it's, over 500 pages, 496 plus the front pages. Okay, it is just chock full of evidence, objective evidence, scientific evidence. My God, even Zapruder's assistant, Erwin Schwartz, said he saw the brains blown out to the left rear. These guys are such amateurs. They have no idea what they're talking about. They're exaggerating in order to make a position easier to attack. Notice how many times he says what Fetzer is saying. He's not quoting Fetzer. He's just making it up. It's completely ridiculous. And it's John Costello who established the fact that the whole film is a fabrication in the following specific sense. There are ghost images that are forms of double exposure created by the way the Zapruder film operated that link together each frame in succession as though it were a cinematic chain. If you break that cinematic chain, it's very easy to tell the film has been altered. Therefore, they had to reshoot in a laboratory each frame in order to get the right succession of ghost images. That is the sense in which the entire film is a fabrication. It's not that they got a bunch of actors up there and they made this up out of whole cloth. That's what they're trying to imply. I mean, somebody's a fruitcake here, but it ain't me. This is so ridiculous. This is such mediocrity. We have all kinds of proof. I mean, right there internal, you got frame 374, 375. You can see the blowout. 314, 15, 16, 17, you can't. 317 is a great contrast with 374. I made that a major part of the color photo section here in the book. I made 374 a very important point out of it. And I have in many, right there, you see it says 374. You can see the blowout. These guys don't know what they're talking about. Not only that, but the films are not pairwise consistent. For example, in the Nix film, Jackie goes further back on the trunk and Clint Hill goes further up on the trunk. So, then they do in the Zapruder. They use the Zapruder to edit the other films. And these people, I mean, Josiah Thompson is an op. There's absolutely no question about it. I've exposed him time and time and time again. If you want the latest, check out the article, JFK, the CIA, and the New York Times, which you can find online. I'll reprint it here soon. But this is complete rubbish. They don't know what they're talking about. They haven't done their research. We've known more than they are articulating here back in 1996 when I organized that first symposium. I mean, this is simply disgusting.
Well, wait a minute, Dr. Fetzer. You didn't even mention the police officers riding next to the limousine.
I know. Larry, of course, has nailed the coffin shut. I mean, it's absurd. You have Clint Hill rushing forward. You got the limo stop, which lasted, I think now, as much as 20 to 30 seconds because of everything that was happening. JFK is hit twice in the head during the limo stop. He slumps forward. Jackie eases him right back up, and he's hit the right temple by a frangible or exploding bullet that sets up shockwaves that blow his brains out to the left rear. When it hits Officer Baker riding there, he is hit so hard he initially thinks he himself has been shot. He dismounts his bike during the stop, runs between the two limousines to the other side. Officer Douglas motors right up on the side of the grassy knoll until his bike falls over. They proceed toward the grassy fit. 5 agents get out of the limousine, the Secret Service, Queen Mary, and surround the presidential limousine. One of them grabs a chunk of JFK's skull from a little boy and throws it in the back seat. How much time did that take? I can't see any possible way it was less than 20 to 30 seconds. And this is just absurd. They don't know what they're talking about. They're misleading students at JFK. Frankly, just to put it in the simplest term, they're lying. They are just plain lying. Look, there are only two choices. Either they just don't know enough to be addressing it, but they're addressing it anyway. That's a form of lying because they're pretending to be competent when they're not competent, or they've done the research and they know the facts, in which case they're overtly dissembling, which makes them liars in the more obvious sense. It's just disgusting.
Larry, why don't you talk to us about the motorcycle cops, how much proof that is? And I've never heard them speak about that to date.
Well, before talking about the motorcycle cops, I just wanted to comment that the Eugenio did not even mention the capabilities of Hawkeye Works in Rochester, New York, and what they were capable of doing with film and optical printers and the equipment that they had available. And Douglas Horne's Volume 4, which is such an important part of JFK assassination books, which are available and knows about this literature, and not even mentioning the great work that Horne did in tracking and tracing the movements of the Zapruder film that weekend, and what happened at Hawkeye Works and then NPIC at the NPIC is just ludicrous that he wouldn't even mention that in this interview, in this show that we heard today. So that's just besides what
Here's
happened.
Volume 4, by the way. I mean, I was trying to get it off of the stack of books, but
right.
I mean, it's outrageous.
And it looks like my copy. It's all marked with all.
Yeah, look at all these. Look at all these tags. I mean, this is a very, very important volume of the 5 volumes.
That's
and
right.
By the way, David Mandick has now just published his what I think is going to be the definitive work on the autopsy X-rays and the skull wounds to JFK on Kindle. So go to David W. Mandick on Kindle, and it's I think it's entitled the JFK skull wounds. But
right.
Here's an expert. You know, I have seen those scans. I've been in their office. I saw them. It's obvious. This black patch on the back of the head stands out like a sore thumb. It's so obvious, and all the film restoration experts said it was unbelievably crude how they had done it. Crude.
All right, now, Don, you've told me more than one time they never mention Israel on Block Off Radio. So talk to us.
No, they don't. They don't talk about who was the guy that actually organized JFK's activities down there in Dallas. Sam Bloom. He was a Jew. Okay, so his name never comes up on Black Op Radio. That was the guy who shot down Kennedy's advance man, who wanted to move the whole thing from the Women's Forum. The Kennedy's guy wanted Kennedy to speak at the Women's Forum, and Sam Bloom wanted him over at the Trade Mart.
Yeah, the Women's Forum was very safe, very secure. The Trade Mart was not. It had lots of balconies, lots of entrances and exits. The Secret Service didn't like it. They did like the Women's Forum. That was part of the whole setup. If they didn't get him in Dealey Plaza, they were going to get him at the Trade Mart. If they didn't get him at the Trade Mart, they were going to get him on the Johnson Ranch. Obviously, the least desirable, but the most guarantee of success. He was not going to survive 22 November 1963.
No, and they don't talk about people like Yitzhak Rabin that were in Dealey Plaza.
And by the way, let me comment on this, Don. You don't know, but the first hour I spent with Major William Fox talking about Michael Collins Piper and his work on fatal judgment and his death, which has many suspicious aspects, including a series of blisters on his back. You're going to really find fascinating, and it just ties in beautifully what you're saying here, how the whole first hour was devoted to his work on the role of Israel in the assassination.
Yeah, I found Piper's book, Final Judgment, is just a devastating work. And he does admit in there that he got what really got Piper, what really made that book so tremendous was he got a huge data dump from a local Dallas reporter. He just got a big stack of stuff came in the mail one day, and Piper started going through it, and he tracked it all down. And you can't talk about the removal of the President of the United States, a Catholic, a white American, JFK, the troops organized, by a Jew, the Patsy is shot by a Jew in the Dallas police station there, and a Jew took over. Lyndon Johnson was Jewish.
Yeah, it's very surprising.
So the whole thing start to finish and then who covers it up but the Jewish media?
Yeah, tell us about Ben Gurion being at loggerheads with Kennedy.
Oh yeah. We talked about that, Major Fox and I, about how JFK was opposed to Israel's development of nuclear weapons, and Ben Gurion became furious with him. And I believe he gave instructions to the Mossad to assist in his assassination before he resigned himself, so he would not be in office when the event would take place. But I principally attribute it to, Lyndon and his cronies. I mean, Lyndon set this up when he forced himself on the ticket in 1960. So I think this is basically a red-blooded American operation, that the roots of the assassination were in Dallas with the oilmen, but most especially the unbelievable self-absorption, the quest for power of Lyndon Baines Johnson himself, who if you read the wonderful books by Phil Nelson, in particular LBJ Mastermind of the JFK assassination, you just are overwhelmed by all the signs of the kind of person Lyndon Johnson was. He was corrupt to the core, and he would brook no opposition. He would allow no one to come between him and what he wanted to accomplish. He was a genius at manipulating other men. He could size up a man's weaknesses virtually instantaneously. It was uncanny how able he was. But, I'm just dumbfounded that you have Leno Sanik and Jim DiEugenio pretending to be experts about a matter they know nothing. They know nothing. They haven't even read the Great Zapruder film hoax, or they couldn't be making these incredibly stupid remarks. And while DiEugenio claims, he read all 5 volumes of Doug Horne's work, how much of it did he understand? I mean, right in chapter 4, that last part where he's discussing the film, Doug Horne makes one key point after another. And, of course, he's already established the blowouts. By the way, David Mandick, in this new book, you'll be fascinated, believes there may even have been a 3rd hit to the head.
Jim, I wanted to back up a little bit on what Don was talking about on the Jewish influence here of the assassination. There's a document that has been cited by many authors, among them Peter Dale Scott and James Douglas, and it's a Secret Service document. In this document, a fellow by the name of Homer Echeverria, I don't know if that rings a bell with you guys. He, out of Chicago, he was a Cuban exile, and he was quoted by an informant as saying, and I'm going to read this exactly the way it's stated in this report, and I'm citing, this is primary source material that I'm citing here. It's file number CO2-34030, and it's out of Chicago from the Secret Service, and it's dated 11/26 of 1963, just the Monday after the assassination, Monday or Tuesday after the assassination, where he said that, quote, "We now have plenty of money. Our new backers are Jews. As soon as we, or they, take care of Kennedy." And like I said, this is primary source material. I just wanted to see if you guys could comment on this Homer Echeverria fellow, because later on, when Chauncey Holt wrote his book on the scoundrel that he was, where he was part of the crew that was working behind the picket fence, as we all know. And he said in this book that Homer Echeverria was one of the Secret Service agents, or supposed Secret Service agents, who was behind the picket fence, and he had given him credentials, fake Secret Service credentials, and he was dressed as a Secret Service agent. Well, so maybe we could.
I knew Chauncey. When I discovered he was still alive from the 3rd decade, a letter to the editor, I sent him a copy of the 7-part, 4.5-hour JFK, the assassination, the cover-up, and beyond I'd produced in 1994, which Gary has just put on the air here in successive weeks. He called me up about 4:30 in the morning to tell me he just sat up all night watching it, and he thought I had it right. And I thought that was pretty astounding to come from a guy who was actually a participant in the assassination. He was a truth teller. He knew the case inside and out. He was a marvelous marksman. He ran a school for assassins. A couple contracts were put out on him, but the other guy came out on the short end of the stick. He was actually murdered in the hospital by a CIA guy impersonating a doctor who gave him a massive dose of blood thinner. So he bled internally, and he swelled up like a tomato. I mean, it was just god-awful, but no one wanted to mess with Chauncey. So they got him in a hospital where he was a sitting target.
So when Chauncey talks about this Homer Echeverria, he was. It's a very good possibility that he was telling us the truth about him, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, Chauncey was a truth teller. I mean, he wanted the truth to come out. I mean, he had worked at the lots. He had a fascinating career. He was born into a trapeze family. He was a painter. He was a counterfeiter. He was a forger. He wound up working for faking IDs for the CIA at the Los Angeles Stamp and Stationery Store.
Yeah. I read his book. It's a wonderful book.
He's got like 3 manuscripts. One about when he was in prison in California. That's unbelievably hilarious. The situations that took place there. He was a brilliant writer. I mean, the guy was at a first-class brain. Really a smart guy.
Well, he talks in that book about Joseph Ball.
Yes.
And being part of actually a CIA operative where they had a safe house in Acapulco.
Right.
And a lot of these operatives ended up, vacationing after the assassination in Acapulco of all places, So, but Don, have you ever heard of this quote about we now have plenty of money, our new backers are Jews?
Yeah, Piper in the beginning of Final Judgment states that was when he saw that's what got him going down the whole Jewish angle in the first place, was seeing that the anti-Castro Cubans were tied in tight with the Jewish operatives.
And also Jim Garrison talking about Permindex, which he never did go far enough down the road, but he already had enough problems.
I think Perm Index is one of those areas that deserves much, much more exploration. I think it's very, very important. It hasn't received a fraction of the attention. I had this fellow on a couple of shows doing Jack Ruby's phone book, and he talked about Perm Index a fair amount. Very interesting shows. If you missed them,
those were really good shows. Yeah, and all the connections Ruby had, or most of them were Jewish.
Right, we did a show on Permindex, Don and I, and then when that show came up, Jack Ruby's address book, we were just blown away. It was a match made in heaven. Those 2 shows were hand in glove.
Gary, was there anything in what they were saying on Black Op Radio that was worth hearing? I mean, this is just tripe. I mean, I can't believe the low level of disinformation they're shoveling here. It's pathetic.
There's more if you want to hear them put their foot in their mouth even deeper.
But aren't there 4 different clips, aren't there? Maybe we should turn to one of the others.
Well, this is the last one here. It's about 4 more minutes.
Okay.
All right, here we go. They have one part I can't wait for you to hear. When they're waiting for someone of competence to come along and settle this matter about the Z film.
In 2001 I think that was actually shot in 65 or 70 millimeter film. To try and do it in 1963 with Super 8, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
The only way you could have done it is, as other people said, you would have had to blown it up to at least 35 millimeter and then shrunk it down. And it'd be very, very hard not to be detectable. Okay. But anyway, that's what some of the more...
Just to interrupt, that's what they did at the National Photographic Interpretation Center. They got these little micro dots that were filmed by satellite, and they blew them up. That's why taking the film to the NPIC was such an appropriate thing to do. But as has been remarked already, they never talk about the role of Hawkeye works. I mean, look, we know for a fact that the original was taken to the NPIC on Saturday. It was an 8mm all-ray split film developed in Dallas. It was the original. The substitute was brought on Sunday to the NPIC. It was a 16mm unsplit film developed in Rochester. That's when the substitution was made. They had 2 different crews working. One crew on Saturday, including Bruno Buglioni, and another crew on Sunday, so that they didn't know what each other was doing, and they didn't realize there were 2 different films involved here.
All right, here we go. Just a couple of minutes left in this one here.
See, that's not what this couple's saying. That's not what they're saying at all. They're just saying that this one piece of film for a few seconds has been what they call aerial imaged, that is touched up. That's what they're saying happened. Okay? So there's a big difference between the radical film alterationists and what this Hollywood couple is saying. So I just wanted to make that clear. Okay.
And what that would entail was if you were to go in and draw in with a little felt pen or something, or in the frame, and do that, and then project that and take a film of that, make a copy of that, then it would appear to be on there. Right. And so therefore, when Robert Groden gets that copy, he says, well, this is my original copy. And like I say, he's entitled to his opinion. And in the 50 years, we let him say his opinion, until the time that someone has corrected us and we move forward with research. So they're saying, now we can definitely see there's something wrong here. And I mean, Jim Garrison was the guy who said, they'll do anything. They'll do anything to keep this thing going. So I wouldn't put anything past them. When you look at the x-rays, you look at the photographs and everything. So it doesn't surprise me. But when some of these other guys have these claims that are too outlandish, I just don't agree with everything that I just hear. And in the case that I don't agree with a traveling Matt, that I do agree there's something wrong with 313. I mean, I used to take 8mm stuff. I never saw anything look like that. That one frame, just the way that's kind of triangle red, and that's just like, you'd have to recreate it. You'd have to get 8mm film. And
Gary, let me talk about frame 313 because it merged the two hits. I said how he's hitting the back of the head, he slumped forward, Jackie eased him back up. And then he was hitting the right and fell back to the left. He slumped back to the left. Well, in recreating the film, they merged the two. All you have from the first slump forward is the motion from 312 to 313. And then you have the back and to the left, and they took out so many frames that it got jerky. So it's a violent back and to the left when he actually just slumped over to the left. But what they're ignoring is that even not only Josiah Thompson had a completely brilliant analysis of what called the double hip theory with a diagram analysis. I don't know who did it. He didn't do it, but it was brilliant, by far the best part of his book, establishing two shots within a fraction of a second of one another. Because, of course, the film ran, the camera, the version we have now runs at 18.3 frames per second. So you're talking about one frame in the 18th of a second where you have the forward motion. David Lifton went up to Caltech and talked with the world's most famous physicist, Richard Feynman, who took a ruler and applied them to blow-ups of these frames and discovered the double hit all by himself at Caltech, for God's sake. So when Josiah Thompson goes about wanting to disavow the double hit theory, which is conclusive proof that there was even based on the extant film of at least two shooters and therefore a conspiracy, Lifton had actually established it independently, as he reports in a long footnote in Best Evidence. I mean, Lifton has been doing pioneering work on the surgery to the head, on the alteration of the body, and the faking of photographs and films. He's made absolutely brilliant contributions. And then, for these people to display their total ignorance of what all the serious people have been doing, including John Costello, this is not just embarrassing. This is an insult. This is an insult to the JFK community. It's an insult to the pursuit of truth and an insult to the American people. They're a disgrace. They don't deserve to be on radio. Yeah, I'm shocked.
All right, we've got about another minute or so, so let's go ahead and finish with the clip and we'll let everybody talk about it. Here we go. We'll wrap it up. Now, Don, you see what you started this morning? Everything was going fine.
Hey, I do what I can, man.
All right, here we go.
Again, not like Gary Mack, but and not like that guy that did the watermelon experiments, right?
Oh, you mean Alvarez? Yeah, forget it.
That was one of the good things that came out of Pittsburgh, I think.
Right. By the way, I should say your friend Jeff Carter has just submitted a long two-part article on the backyard photographs. I don't know if you were working on that with him or you knew he was working on it. Okay, but he just submitted it to me last night. Okay, so I'm going to be reviewing it. Our side does do peer review. Okay, we always do something.
What good does it do to have someone like Jim Diogenio to be reviewing work where he's incompetent? He's not a competent scholar of these issues. So him to cast himself as a referee is simply absurd.
All right, 20 seconds to go.
All right, any more letters you want to get to?
That's it for tonight. I'm getting a little tired.
All right. I appreciate your point of view and listening to you. Thanks for your research, Jim. And I'll speak to you again in the next week or two.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good. Have a good summer. Good night.
Well, I guess I missed that point when they said, well, we'll just have to wait for someone competent to come along and investigate the Z film. But I'm
telling you, they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, they cannot have read the Great Zapruder film hoax and make these claims unless they're as duplicitous as it comes, which I don't put past either of them at this point in time. But when Len keeps saying he's entitled to his opinion, yeah, but not all opinions are of equal value, and he's not entitled to his facts. So, you know, when we have established these things, the massive alteration, the internal inconsistency, you can see 374, what the actual blowout looked like. Compared it to 317, it's not there. And for Robert Groen to say, oh, you can actually see it when you can't see it, when the Hollywood experts have confirmed how crudely it was painted over, is again embarrassing and impugns Robert Groden, who, I'm sorry to say, has played a major role here in relation to several issues, not just Zapruder film authenticity, but he was actually hired by the HSCA to investigate whether Doorman was or was not Lee Oswald. And he maintained he compared the shirts, and that the shirt corresponded to the long sleeve checkered shirt that he later photographed Billy Lovelady wearing, and not to Oswald's shirt, when Judith has shown precisely the opposite to be the case. She did a brilliant study of the pixels, and the checkered shirt had a very distinctive pattern when you zoom in on it and compare the pixels, which is missing from the Oswald shirt. The Oswald shirt, the Doorman shirt and the Oswald shirt are a very close match. The checkered shirt and the Doorman shirt aren't a remote match, not at all. And yet Groden, for the HSCA, perpetrated the fraud of suggesting that, in fact, it was Billy Lovelady, who wasn't even wearing a black and white checkered shirt at the time. He was wearing a short sleeve red and white vertically striped shirt, which is a shirt he took to the FBI when they asked him to come in and show him the shirt he was wearing that day. I mean, the lies we're getting from the JFK community is just appalling. All
right, now also earlier, I won't bother to play the clip, but Jim DiEugenio actually said that we needed a handwriting expert analysis of Oswald ordering the rifle. But I think Larry's got something to say about handwriting analysis. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, this follows exactly what Jim was just talking about regarding the HSCA fiasco when and Kenneth Bruton to visit Billy Lovelady in Denver, Colorado, and that one document that shows a handwritten statement supposedly witnessed by Billy Lovelady's wife, Patricia, Kenneth Bruton, and Groden, which was is a document that we sent to an independent handwriting expert. And that person wrote a 14-page report on that. And she said, because we provided her with Billy Lovelady's actual signature from the affidavits of November 22nd, and she did a comprehensive, complete handwriting, and she said not the same. It was the person who signed that statement, that handwritten statement that's contained in the House Select Committee of Assassinations report, that which came from that trip to Denver, Colorado, and we wrote an article on that because this Kenneth Bruton has never been really investigated as far as his activities with the HSCA, and so I just thought that we should bring that up. Also, Jim was talking about Frank 374, but Jim, we also did that comparison of frame 343, which John Costello also confirmed clearly showed the blowout in the back of the head because it was Jack's white glove provided the perfect background to see the. And this one is even clearer than any of the other frames.
Which frame is it, Larry?
343, where we wrote that article on for Veterans Today. Remember a few months ago.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And that frame shows even more of a better picture, the outline of the blowout in the back of the head. That's also that you discovered in 374.
Well, before these guys open their mouth again about the Zapruder film, they better read the classic treatment of the film, which has 516 pages, and they don't appear to have read a single one of them. It's embarrassing. It's shocking. The work is out there. It's been out there since 2003, and they don't know it at all. They don't know what they're talking about. They're an embarrassment to the JFK community and to the United States of America. I'm disgusted with these guys, both of them.
Well, I believe there's even more problems with the Zapruder film, especially at frame 255, which supposedly is the same image from the Alton's photograph taken from the other side of the street, where Officer Shaney is clearly right next to JFK, where he can almost touch him. And Beverly Brunson discovered back in 1968 that there was a very, very good possibility that Shaney might have been painted out of the Zapruder film altogether in those frames. And she discovered this blue paint along the side of the limo. And she said, why can we see Shaney in the Alton 6 photograph? And he's right there next to JFK. But when you look at a Zapruder film and you look at frame 255, he's not there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. And Jim Diogenio saying he's got a new article to consider about the backyard photographs. Well, for God's sake, Jim Mars and I wrote a definitive article about the backyard photographs building on the work of Jack White and also Judith Berry Baker. It's entitled Framing the Patsy, the Case of Lee Harvey Oswald. They've restored my articles on Veterans Today. You should be able to find it. I'll bet they're going to come up with some poppycock, some ridiculous nonsense, because they don't know the case. They don't know the evidence. They certainly don't understand logic or reasoning or science. I'm just shocked. Yeah, I'm just shocked.
Jim, tell us how you really feel now.
Listen, we only got a couple minutes. I'd like each of you to take 1 minute apiece and just give a summary of your views just for today.
Okay, yeah. With the Z film, I don't know that Len ever had Rich De La Rosa on the show. Who actually
interviewed him? I interviewed him.
Yeah, and
Rich De La Rosa was on the show.
Was he on Black Op?
No doubt, many times.
Okay, yeah, and Rich saw the actual unedited.
Three times.
Yeah, and one key point, like you were talking about right off the top here, Jim, was you don't see the turn from Elm or from Houston onto Elm.
Right.
And then Greer almost missed the sidewalk there.
Right. He swung out nearly hit a concrete abutment there.
Yeah, I've heard the wheels of the limo were up on the sidewalk.
Roy truly talked about that. It's really shocking. I mean,
And you don't see any of that in the extant Zapruder.
Right.
So how can
Larry's
there
done
not
great
be
work on that? Larry's done great work on that as far as the motorcycle going up the hill.
Yeah. In fact, we did that last November when we went to Dealey Plaza and we tracked that cubby hole over there under the overpass, and we determined that that same incident that Don was talking about put the limo in perfect line to a shot within a flat, low trajectory, would have penetrated the windshield and hit Jeff smack in the throat. Right, and we determined that that was most probably the source of that shot because it's low and it lines up perfectly. The limo is several seconds, and when it makes that turn, that S turn on Elm Street, and it's actually stays on that plane, on that path for 2 to 3 seconds, which would have been perfect.
Well, there's like 11-degree incline of Elm Street there that really affects understanding the ballistics.
Exactly, and that cubbyhole where the railing and the column there formed a perfect firing position for a sniper, and you stood there and you verified that was most probably the source of that shot.
I was very impressed. Gary, you got like 60 seconds. Wrap it up for us, my friend.
I just want everyone to pledge that we're going to be 100% truthers. We're here for no other reason. And the fact that the information coming out of the JFK community is so pathetic that we don't even want to do this, but we have to. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do the best job of it. And I think we have the right team here. We got 4 guys, and I'm always on the lookout for an op. And these guys there's no way. Trust these guys.
This is Jim Fetzer, your host on The Real Deal, thanking my special guests for this second hour, Don Fox, Gary King, Larry Rivera, who do first-rate work across the board. Thanking them for being here and all of you for listening.